My name's Dave. Back in 2019, I was working the night shift at a 24-hour Walmart in Florida. I was finishing up college and really needed the money to pay off my student loans, so I took on this second job. My job was pretty straightforward. Stock shelves, do warehouse work, and sign for deliveries after hours. I didn't have to deal with customers, which I liked. The typical shift would usually be 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., or sometimes 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. On June 20th, 2019, a Thursday night, I had a lot to do. Most of the shelves were empty and I was midway through my shift in the grocery department. There were only two other workers in the building with me that night, Balthazar and Cameron. They were both wearing the same staff shirt as me. We all punched in at the same time. It was around 2 a.m. when I first saw something strange. I was stocking the grocery shelves when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone walk past. This wouldn't usually catch my attention, but they were wearing all black. I knew it wasn't Balthazar or Cameron because they were wearing their staff shirts. Naturally, I walked to the end of the shelf to peep around, but no one was there. I called out both Balthazar's and Cameron's names, but when they didn't answer, it made things even stranger. Regardless, I went back to work. I had been holding my pee for a while and told myself I would go when I finished stocking the grocery shelf. Seconds later, there was a huge crash a few aisles down. It actually frightened me. I ran over to see what it was, and the tin milks I had stocked earlier were turned over, but the shelf was still standing firm in place. It seemed like someone had to put effort into knocking them off. I started walking around the aisle, suspicious as hell. I got to the last aisle, which was the paper and cleaning aisle at the back of the store. Then I heard this freaky laugh that I could best describe as a chuckle. It sounded like it literally came from the next aisle over. So once again, I did a short run back to that aisle. My heart dropped when I saw a man dressed in all black waiting at the end of the aisle with his back facing me, but his head turned so all I could see was half his face. Then he started running, not towards me, but down some other aisle. I heard his footsteps running around and I was faced with two choices. Either I go after him or go and find my two coworkers. All the while I heard these freakish laughing sounds and footsteps that honestly felt like they were circling me. I found Balthazar in the women's department and told him to be on the lookout for someone who wasn't meant to be in the building, dressed in all black. We didn't have walkie-talkies, so I asked him to tell Cameron if he ran into him. I excused myself because I couldn't hold my pee any longer. I ran to the employees-only bathroom, which was in the warehouse section. As I approached the bathroom, I heard the door open and close. Naturally, with only 3 to 4 people in the building, I called out, "Who's that?" But no one answered. I assumed the worst. I heard that creepy chuckle again, followed by footsteps walking around in the bathroom. My heart started to beat fast. I looked through the crack between the door and the frame, and there he was, just standing there. I remembered I had Balthazar's phone number, so I took out my phone and called him at once. I was very loud with what I was saying, telling Balthazar to get to the bathroom at once and help me. I stayed on the line with him and watched as the man in black ran out of the bathroom. I told Balthazar to hurry. 20 to 30 seconds later, Balthazar entered the bathroom. He said he didn't see anyone on his way there. We didn't have any security guards working when the store was closed, so we couldn't even check the cameras. I was so terrified I stayed by Balthazar for the rest of the night, helping him in whatever section he was working in. I texted my boss that night, and when I woke up at 3 p.m. the next day and read his response, he said all the camera screens had turned to static footage from the night before. Nobody had gone and turned them off as far as he knew. I got chills reading his text. He believed my story, but with no video proof of a break-in or trespassing, there wasn't anything he could do. It was all above my paycheck, though. That was the only night shift I ever had where something truly unexplainable happened. From that night on, I made sure I was always aware of my surroundings and never worked alone. It's an experience that still haunts me to this day. I had to make sure I was safe. My name is Dave, and I used to work the night shift at a 24-hour Walmart. The job wasn't anything special, just stocking shelves, cleaning up, and making sure everything was ready for the morning crew. I liked the quiet nights. The store was usually pretty empty, and I could get my work done without too many distractions. It all started one night when I noticed this guy hanging around the store. It was around 11 p.m. and he didn't look like the usual late-night shopper. He was tall, maybe in his mid-40s, with a scruffy beard and a worn-out baseball cap. He was just kind of wandering around, not really looking at anything in particular. I didn't think much of it at first. People come and go at all hours, so I just went about my business. After a while, I saw him again. This time he was in the electronics section, just standing there staring at the TVs. He didn't have a cart or any items in his hands. I figured he was probably just killing time, maybe waiting for someone. But something about him made me uneasy. He kept glancing around like he was checking if anyone was watching him. Around midnight, I took a break in the back room. When I came out, I saw him again. He was in the grocery aisle now, just standing there looking at the shelves. It was weird. Most people would at least pick something up if they were shopping, but he just stood there staring. I started to get this feeling in the pit of my stomach like something wasn't right. I tried to shake it off and went back to work. But every time I looked up, there he was, in a different part of the store, always watching. It was like he was following me. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Maybe he was just a weird guy with nothing better to do. But I couldn't help but feel creeped out. Around 2 a.m., I was in the toy aisle, stocking some shelves. I heard footsteps behind me and turned around. There he was, just a few feet away, staring at me. I tried to act normal and said, "Can I help you with something?" He didn't respond, just kept staring. After a few seconds, he turned and walked away without saying a word. That's when I knew something was definitely wrong. I went to find my coworker, Mike, and told him about the guy. Mike shrugged it off, saying people do weird stuff all the time. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was different. I decided to keep an eye on him for the rest of my shift. Around 3 a.m., I was in the back of the store unpacking some boxes. I looked up at the security camera monitor and saw the guy standing near the entrance, just staring at the doors. He didn't move for what felt like forever. I called Mike over and pointed it out. He watched for a few seconds and then said, "Yeah, that's pretty creepy." We decided to go out and see if we could talk to him, maybe figure out what his deal was. But by the time we got to the front of the store, he was gone. I felt a mix of relief and dread. Maybe he'd finally left, but maybe he was still lurking somewhere. The rest of the night was uneventful. I didn't see him again, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. When my shift ended at 7 a.m., I went home and tried to get some sleep, but it was hard. I kept seeing his face in my mind, those cold eyes staring at me. The next night, I was on edge. I kept looking around, expecting to see him. And sure enough, around midnight, there he was. He walked in like he owned the place, wandered around for a bit, and then started watching me again. This time, I wasn't going to let it slide. I went straight to the manager, Tony, and told him everything. Tony took me seriously, which was a relief. He said he'd keep an eye on the guy and let me know if he did anything suspicious. For the next couple of hours, Tony watched the security monitors while I tried to focus on my work. I saw the guy a few times, but he didn't get too close. Around 3 a.m., Tony called me to the back office. He showed me the footage from the security cameras. The guy had been in the store almost every night for the past week, always around the same time, always watching. Tony said he'd call the police if the guy showed up again. The next night, I was nervous as hell. I kept looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to appear. Sure enough, around midnight, he walked in. This time, Tony called the police right away. 2 officers showed up a few minutes later and started talking to the guy. I watched from a distance as they questioned him. He didn't seem nervous or anything, just calm and collected. After a few minutes, they escorted him out of the store. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. The next night, he didn't show up, and I started to relax a bit. But then, around 2 a.m., I found a note on one of the shelves in the grocery aisle. It was just a piece of paper with a message scribbled on it. "I'm watching you." My heart skipped a beat. How did he get back in? Had he been there all along? I showed the note to Tony and he called the police again. They searched the store but didn't find anything. The officers told me to be careful and to call them if I saw anything suspicious. I was freaked out but tried to keep my cool. The next few nights were tense. I didn't see the guy, but I felt like he was always there watching. I found another note a few nights later, this one in the toy aisle. It said, "You can't hide." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I told Tony I needed to switch to the day shift. He understood and made the arrangements. Working during the day was a relief. There were more people around, and I felt safer, but I couldn't stop thinking about the guy. Who was he? Why was he stalking me? I never found out. After a few weeks, I decided to quit and find another job. It just wasn't worth the stress.